Once upon a time, there lived a woman named Akachi. Akachi was married to Udo. Udo was a hunter. He was not rich, but he was not poor. He was able to provide for the needs of his family. Although not yet blessed with children, he showered Akachi with all the love he had, buying her new clothes, jewelry, and many other things. He loved his wife. He did not care about what his family said. They were pressuring him to take a second wife. He was not getting any younger, and his wife was also getting old. And they needed him to take a second wife so that he could have children. But he refused. He loved Akachi since he was young, and he would not leave her. Akachi would always pray to the goddess Efuru to bless her husband. He was a good man, and she wanted him to have a good life with all the children he desired. After a year, Akachi finally gave birth to a daughter. They named her Adora. Adora was the son to her parents. They doted on her and provided all she needed. One day, while Udo was hunting, an arrow struck him, and before help could come, he had died. Akachi and Adora cried so much. By this time, Adora was 15 years old. Her uncle Mazi Ube, Udo's brother, came and threw Akachi and her daughter away from their home. He said that, as was tradition, Akachi and her daughter, as women, had no right to his brother's properties. He kicked them out. Udo, his brother, had not even been buried at this time. None of her in-laws came to her aid. Once her husband was buried, she had no place to go to. Her life had turned to hell. Akachi was an orphan, so she had no one to turn to. Then she remembered her friend, Nenna. Nenna was also a widow. She allowed Akachi and her daughter to live with her. Nenna also had a daughter of her own. Her name was Ngozi. Ngozi did not live with her mother. She lived in a neighboring village called Agoma. She worked under a woman named Aboma. Aboma was a very rich woman who provided work for many young girls in the village. She was the sister to the queen mother. The king was her nephew. She would take these young girls to neighboring villages where they would weave baskets and make some money and send back home. The girls were to work for her for 3 years until they saved up enough money to start their own businesses. Ngozi had just gotten back home from her first trip when Akachi and Adora moved in. Ngozi had worked for Aboma for a few weeks and had made lots of money. She told her mother, Akachi and Adora, how beautiful the Agoma village was, how the village was richly blessed, unlike theirs, the Akuku village. Then suddenly Nenna turned to Akachi and said, "Why don't you allow your daughter Adora to follow Ngozi to this Agoma village? She can make some money and you people will be able to have your own home." Akachi was skeptical at first. Adora was her only child, but it was true, they did need money. They were suffering since her husband had passed. Her in-laws had taken everything from them. If she worked here in Akuku village and Adora worked in the Agoma village, they may be able to save up enough money to get a small hut for themselves. So the next day, when Aboma came to collect Ngozi, both mothers begged her to take Adora as well. She should take both girls so that both girls would work in the farm. Aboma was happy and agreed to this. And so Adora and Ngozi left. Their mothers, Inenna and Akachi, stayed back. Aboma also took other girls as well. During this time, Aboma would send money back home on behalf of the girls, along with messages from the girls to their parents. She would send her errand boy. Akachi herself got some money and a message from Adora saying that she was happy and she was okay. This made Akachi relieved. Then after a few weeks, some of the girls came back. This time, Adora came back, but Ngozi did not. When Nnenna asked Adora what happened to Ngozi, Adora said Ngozi was taken to another farm, and since then she had not seen her. Nnenna was not worried. Ngozi, through Aboma, had sent a message that she was okay and she had sent some more money, so Nnenna was not worried. The day before Adora was to leave, her mother told her to be careful. She was more important to her than any money. By the time she returns a second time, she won't go back, as they would have saved up enough money to get a small hut. Adora agreed to this, and then she left. For the next few months, neither Adora nor Ngozi came back home, but they kept sending money and messages through Aboma that they were both fine. Nnenna was okay with this, but Akachi was not. She had saved enough money to have her own place now. She wanted Adora back. Adora was her only child. She wanted her back and close to her. However, it had been months now, and neither Ngozi or Adora were back. While she was in the market selling her goods, Akachi heard other mothers complaining that they had not seen their own daughters for a while, and this was strange. Akachi was getting scared. That day, once she left the market, she went to Nnenna's house and told her what she had heard in the market. Some girls had not been back for some time now. No one has seen them. No one has seen Aboma either. Only her errand boy, who brings back the money and the messages. What can we do? Akachi asked. What do you mean, what can we do? Nnenna said. Instead of you to be grateful that at least your daughter has something doing and she can send money back home, you know that since your husband died, things have been difficult for you. Now with the money Adora sends back, you have been able to afford your own place, is it not? My friend, let's wait and see. I'm sure that all is well. They will soon return, Nnenna said. But a few months passed and still nothing. Akachi now was beyond worried. She just wanted Adora back. Some other mothers had started complaining seriously. They all went to the king to report, but he assured them that he would handle the matter. Aboma was, after all, his family member. She was a wise woman. She was an elderly woman and of royal blood. He assured them that he would send his guards to search for Aboma, and that when they find her, he will handle the matter. One night, as Akachi slept, Adora appeared to her. Adora looked sick, as if she would die. She appeared very frail. Her eyes looked dead. Mama, please help me. She stretched out her hands, but as Akachi tried to take it, Adora disappeared. And then immediately Akachi woke up. That something was wrong. The next morning, she decided to go to Aguma village. Once in the village, Akachi went around looking for Aboma, but she could not find her. No one seemed to know her or her errand boy. No one knew of a woman who brought girls to farm. They all said that they had never seen foreign girls here, or they had never seen any woman called Aboma. Fear began to go through Akachi's body. If no one knew of Aboma or her farmlands here, then where was she? Akachi went back to the village. She told Nnenna all that had happened, and that's when Nnenna began to worry. They organized a meeting with all the women in the village. They quickly noticed that the girls that went with Aboma were daughters of parents who were very poor. All the mothers said the same thing. It had been months since they saw their daughters. Some did not mind as long as they received the money, saying that their daughters were okay. However, others wanted their daughters back. Forming a group, they went and met the king. The king and his cabinet members gave the women an audience to speak. They promised that they would find Aboma and get to the root of the matter. Again, Aboma was of royal blood. She was trusted, and these women allowed her to take their daughters with her. Maybe something had happened to Aboma herself. However, after a few more years, none of the girls returned. That's when the women became very frustrated and very scared. They tried to go to the palace again, but the king had ordered his guards not to let them come into the palace anymore. Then suddenly Aboma returned. Word spread round the village that Aboma was now back in the palace, but she never came out of the palace. She stayed in the palace. The affected women then planned to protest in front of the palace until Aboma addressed them. The day of the protest, Uju, a widow with 3 sons, woke up and prepared to join the other women in front of the palace. It had been 5 years now since her daughter Oluchi had gone with Aboma. Oluchi was her only female child. Following her husband's death, the family fell into poverty. So she sent Oluchi to follow Aboma so that Oluchi could make extra money for the family. At first, all was fine. Oluchi had returned a few times saying that the work was not so bad and the money was good. But then Oluchi stopped coming home and Uju started to suspect that something was wrong. She was very close to her daughter. They shared almost everything. There is no way that Oluchi would stay away from her mother this long. By this time, Uju was outside sweeping. Once she was done, she would change and head to the palace. As she finished sweeping, she went to the back of the house to drop the broom, and that's when she heard it. It was very low. Mama, Mama. It was very faint, but she could hear it. As she went closer to the bush behind her house, she saw what looked like a girl. She was covered in so much dirt and charcoal. She was bleeding from the waist down. Mama, please help me. Mama, please help me. As she came closer, she saw it was her daughter Oluchi. She screamed, Oluchi! Oluchi, what happened? What happened, eh? Who did this? By this time, Oluchi had passed out. Her mother carried her into the hut. She told her sons not to tell anyone. She sent one of her sons to call the herbalist from another neighboring village. When the man came, he examined Oluchi's body. After examining the child's body, the herbalist went out. What is it? Uju asked. What happened to her? The man seemed worried. It seemed as if he wanted to say something, but he was hesitant. What is it? What is it? Uju shouted. Tell me, what is it? The man asked, where is your husband? Because he was not from the village, he did not know that Uju was a widow. What do you mean by where is my husband? Biko, tell me, I am her mother, what happened? Madam, your daughter has been through a lot. Something that most people can never experience in all their life. And for good reason. What do you mean? Uju asked. He said that Oluchi just had a miscarriage. After examining her, he could see that Oluchi had been abused extensively. She had been beaten many times. You say? What are you saying? Madam, your daughter is going to be unstable for some time. Try and be patient with her. Give her this medicine that I gave you. With time, she will heal. The rest is for the gods. And with that, he left. Uju cried and cried and cried. Hey, what has Aboma done with my child? That night, when Oluchi woke up, Oluchi told her mother all the horrors she went through. The girls initially started farming, but eventually they were taken to a house where they were locked up. Some of them were killed and their organs were taken. Some were used to make babies. They lived a life of horror and pain. By the gods, Oluchi was sent to clean up the blood of another girl who had been killed. It was during this time that Oluchi was able to escape. She did not know where she was, but all she knew was that she had to run back home. And by the gods, she was able to find her way home. Uju cried and cried and cried. Not knowing what to do, she told the women leader of the affected group and word started to spread of the horrors that Oluchi had faced. Some mothers refused to believe it. Aboma was a mother herself. She would not allow any harm to come to the children. Then where are the children? Other women asked. Where are they? Why won't she address us if she is a mother like you said? The women then assembled before the palace, chanting that Aboma must address them. She has to bring back their daughters, otherwise they would not leave. But instead, the king sent his guards to beat the women up. Chisom and her friend were on their way home when they saw the group of women being chased away by the guards. The guards were flogging them. Why is this king so wicked? Her friend said. My friend, really shut up. It serves them right. They have sold their children and they're here crying. Don't say that, Chisom. Don't say that before you use your own mouth to curse your children. Who in this village does not know that most of these women, if not all of them, are less fortunate? They allowed their daughters to go with Aboma because they had no other choice. Hunger would have killed them. Chisom hissed. And so, please, that's not my problem now. Then, after a few weeks, something strange started to happen. The daughters of rich families began to go missing. But still, the king did nothing. One night, Akachi had had enough. After all the horrors that Oluchi had told them, she went to Efuru's shrine. It was midnight. She cried and cried. Efuru! 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 What is it? What have I done to you? Akachi said. You took my parents away from me, but I said nothing. You gave me a good man as a husband. Then you blessed me with Adora, the only jewel in my eyes. You took my husband away from me, and still I said nothing. Now, where is my daughter? Where is the daughter that you gave me? You are here and you want my enemies to take her? No! Kill me, Efuru, kill me, and let my daughter be free, she cried. As she spoke, she had taken off all her clothes. She was now naked. She rubbed the sacred charcoal of Efuru on her face and body, as if to sacrifice herself as one would sacrifice a goat to Efuru, the goddess. She cried all night, and then she collapsed. She had not been eating well and she had become sick, so she had no strength left in her. Then Efuru, the goddess, appeared. She looked down at Akachi. She looked at her, and then she disappeared. The following week, the king was having a meeting with his cabinet members on what to do about the missing girls. Only men were allowed in this meeting. The meeting was held in the Olu. The Olu is a place where women were not permitted to come into except by the direct permission of the king. This was tradition. As they were deliberating on what to do, Aboma ran into the Olu. Is she mad? When the cabinet members asked. No woman is allowed here. The next thing, Aboma shouted to the king, where is my money? Where is it, you thief? The cabinet member shouted, she's mad though. Who accuses the king of being a thief? That is punishment by death. The king was shocked. What's the meaning of this? If it's not that you're my aunt, my mother's sister, I would have asked the guards to throw you out. I dare you, try it, Aboma shouted. I will tell this whole village who you truly are. What is going on here? The cabinet member said. I want my money now. I want it and I want it now, Aboma shouted. Do you think I will not find out that you tried to kill me? Hey, what is happening here? The member said again. By this time, Aboma was beside the throne trying to hit the king, but the guards had pulled her away. The owner who shouted, Aboma, calm down and tell us what happened. Aboma turned and said, He is the one that sold those girls. What did you say? Before she could say more, in a very swift, fast motion, The king stood up immediately and took the cutlass from one of the guards closest to him and used it to cut down Aboma. But before he could kill her, Efuru appeared. No one could see her, only the king. He was in shock. Everyone was looking at him as if he was mad. The king looked as if he had seen a ghost. Efuru looked at the king. Slowly but surely, she turned his neck so that his face was facing his back. Hey! This was a great abomination. Only the gods had the power to do this, and they will only do this to people who had committed the most grievous of crimes. The king started to cry, "Help me, help me." And then he confessed. He said that it was Aboma that had introduced him to the slave traders. But in one of her trips, she came across a group of men who specifically wanted only young girls who were virgins. It was easy to take the girls from poor homes, but then they wanted more. The men paid them in gold. Aboma shouted, "No, it's you! It's you!" And then, before everyone's eyes, she became mad. Don't know who, as second in command, immediately dethroned the king. Then he sent the guards to go and find the girls as the king had described. And not all were alive. Some had died. But Adora was still alive. They brought them back home, and Akachi was happy to see her daughter. All the girls who were rescued told the stories of the horrors they had seen. The king and Aboma were taken to the village market square, and there the both of them were beheaded and thrown into the evil forest. All the gold that they had taken was shared amongst the victims. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. If you liked it, please subscribe, like, comment, share. Thank you to those who have subscribed. Thank you to those who have supported. Until next time, goodbye.